What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the only podcast that dares to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the raw, unfiltered truth. Today, we ain't pulling no punches. We're diving deep into the legend, the myth, the enigma that is Tupac Shakur. And let me tell you, if you think you know the full story, if you think you've heard it all, you better buckle up, because we're about to peel back layers that most people are too scared to even acknowledge. We're talking about the man, the music, and the undeniable controversies that still haunt his legacy to this very damn day. Now, I've heard all the romanticized versions, the poet of the people, the revolutionary, and yeah, there's some truth to that. Tupac was brilliant, no doubt. He had a way with words that could cut you to the bone or lift your spirit to the heavens. But let's not forget the other side, the side that some of y'all conveniently gloss over, the side that had him embroiled in legal troubles, allegations of violence, and rap rivalries that turned deadly. This ain't no fairy tale, folks. This is the gritty, ugly reality of a life lived on the edge, a life that was as contradictory as it was captivating. And speaking of contradictions, let's talk about that infamous incident at Bryant Park. You heard the story, right? The one where Tupac, fresh off that death row East wave, rolls up with 100 deep, all wearing those white death row East shirts. 100 motherfuckers, just stomping through like they own the damn place. And the police? Everywhere. Inside, outside, like they knew some shit was about to go down. But here's the kicker. Here's the part that gets me every time. Tupac, the man who preached thug life, the man who was supposed to be about unity, he rolls up with a black death row East joint, bandana on, ready for war, switched up just like that, ready to throw down, even when he's surrounded by his own people, and the other side is just trying to chill. And then you got the picket signs. Picket signs, for real, like this was some damn protest rally, not a hip-hop event. That's the kind of theatrical bullshit that makes you wonder, was it about the message, or was it about the spectacle? Was it about making a statement, or was it about instigating a confrontation? Because when you show up with 100 deep, with picket signs, and you're already rocking that ready for war look, you ain't looking for peace. You're looking for a reaction. And Tupac, for all his genius, he knew how to get a reaction. He thrived on it. He fed off that energy, that tension, that raw emotion, and that's what made him so compelling, but also so damn dangerous. And let's not forget the alleged sexual assault charges. Yeah, I said it. The elephant in the room that too many people refuse to address. The narrative gets twisted, the facts get blurred, and suddenly it's all about they were trying to take down a black man. But what about the alleged victim? What about the accusations of violence? You can't just sweep that under the rug because you like his music. You can't just ignore the dark side because it doesn't fit your idealized image of a revolutionary. That's the kind of selective outrage that plagues this culture. And it's why we can't have real conversations about the complexities of these figures. Because here's the thing about Tupac. He was a walking, breathing contradiction. A man who could write Dear Mama and then turn around and drop Hit 'Em Up. A man who spoke about police brutality and systemic oppression, but then found himself in constant legal battles. A man who preached thug life as a protest against America's systemic oppression, but then glorified gang culture in his music. And that's where the controversy lies. That's where the real discussion needs to happen. Not in some sanitized, revisionist history, but in the raw, uncomfortable truth of who he really was. And the industry, they loved it. They ate it up. The drama, the beef, the controversy, it all sold records. It all generated headlines. They didn't care about the consequences, about the lives that were being destroyed, about the violence that was being perpetuated. They cared about the bottom line. And Tupac, whether he intended to or not, became a pawn in that game. A brilliant, charismatic pawn, but a pawn nonetheless. He was a product of his environment, yes, but he also contributed to the very chaos that ultimately consumed him. So, when you hear people talking about Tupac, remember this. He wasn't just a prophet. He wasn't just a troubled figure. He was both, and everything in between. He was a complex, flawed human being who lived a life that was as impactful as it was tragic. And to truly understand his legacy, you have to embrace the whole damn picture, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can't pick and choose the parts that make you comfortable. Because the truth, my friends, the truth is rarely comfortable. And that's why we're here, to make you uncomfortable. To make you think, to make you question everything you thought you knew. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go nowhere because we got more fire to spit. And let's talk about the East Coast, West Coast beef, the one that ultimately claimed his life. Was it just a rivalry, or was it something more sinister? Was it orchestrated? Because when you look at the players involved, the money, the power, the egos, it's hard to believe it was just some street beef that got out of hand. There were too many vested interests, too many people who stood to gain from the chaos. And Tupac, with his fiery personality and his willingness to speak his mind, he became the perfect target. He was a lightning rod for controversy, and that made him dangerous to some and profitable to others. Think about the narrative that was pushed. Tupac, the West Coast gangster, against Biggie, the East Coast king. A manufactured rivalry fueled by the media, by record labels, by people who profited from the division. And the fans, we ate it up. We picked sides. We bought into the hype, and we cheered on the destruction. We were all complicit in that, weren't we? We allowed ourselves to be manipulated, to be drawn into a conflict that ultimately served no one but the puppet masters pulling the strings. And what about the theories surrounding his death? The conspiracy theories that persist to this day. Was it the CIA? Was it the FBI? Was it Suge Knight? Was it the Illuminati? The truth is, we may never know, but the fact that these theories still circulate, that people still question the official narrative, tells you something. It tells you that there's a deep-seated distrust, a feeling that something was hidden, something was covered up. And when you look at the history of how powerful institutions have dealt with outspoken black figures, it's not hard to see why people are skeptical. Tupac was a threat to the status quo. He was a voice for the voiceless, a champion of the oppressed. And in a system that thrives on control and conformity, a voice like that is dangerous. It challenges the established order. It inspires people to think, to question, to rebel. And that's why, whether it was intentional or not, his death served a purpose for some. It silenced a powerful voice, and it sent a message to anyone else who dared to step out of line. And let's not forget the legacy, the way his image has been commodified, sanitized, and sold back to us. The revolutionary turned into a brand. The rebel turned into a marketable commodity. It's a testament to his enduring power, yes, but it's also a tragic irony. The man who railed against the system, who fought against commercialism, has become one of its biggest products. And we, the consumers, we buy into it. We wear the t-shirts, we stream the music, we perpetuate the myth without ever truly engaging with the complexities of the man or the message. So as we continue to dissect the life and times of Tupac Shakur, remember this: he was not a saint. He was not a demon. He was a human being with all the flaws and contradictions that come with it. But he was also a force of nature, a cultural icon who transcended music and became a symbol of rebellion, of hope, of struggle. And to truly honor his legacy, we have to be willing to confront the uncomfortable truths, to challenge the convenient narratives, and to demand a deeper understanding of the man and the world he inhabited. Because only then can we truly learn from his triumphs and his tragedies. Only then can we truly understand the impact he had and continues to have on hip-hop and on the world. Don't go nowhere. We got more to unpack after this. And let's talk about the so-called thug life philosophy. For some, it was a profound statement, a defiant cry against systemic oppression. For others, it was an excuse, a justification for violence and criminal behavior. And Tupac, he walked that line, didn't he? He embodied both sides of that coin. He spoke about the struggles of the streets, the desperation, the lack of opportunity, but he also glorified the very lifestyle that trapped so many. And that's where the real debate lies. Was he a product of his environment? Or was he a prophet who understood the complexities of that environment? Or was he both? A man caught in the crossfire of his own contradictions? And what about his relationships with women? The allegations of abuse, the controversies surrounding his personal life. You can't just ignore that. You can't just say, oh, that's just part of being a rapper. No, that's part of being a human being, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Because if we're going to celebrate the man, we also have to acknowledge the flaws, the mistakes, the alleged harm he caused. Otherwise, we're just perpetuating a dangerous myth. A myth that says talent and charisma can excuse any behavior. And the impact he had on a generation, the way he inspired millions, the way he gave a voice to the voiceless, that's undeniable. But we also have to ask ourselves, what kind of voice was it? Was it always a positive one? Did it always lead to empowerment? Or did it sometimes lead to further division, further violence? These are uncomfortable questions, but they're necessary questions. If we're going to truly understand the legacy of Tupac Shakur. Because a legacy isn't just about the good. It's about the whole picture, the light and the shadow. And the fact that his music still resonates today, decades after his death, that tells you something. It tells you that the issues he spoke about, poverty, racism, police brutality, systemic injustice, they're still relevant. They're still plaguing our communities. And that's why his voice, for all its complexities, still matters. But it's up to us to interpret that voice, to understand its nuances, and to learn from its lessons. Not to blindly idolize, but to critically engage. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the controversial world of Tupac Shakur, I want to leave you with this. The truth is messy. It's complicated. It's rarely black and white. And when it comes to figures like Tupac, who lived such complex and contradictory lives, it's even messier. But it's in that messiness, in those contradictions, that we find the real lessons, the real insights. It's in confronting the uncomfortable truths that we truly grow. So, don't be afraid to question, don't be afraid to challenge, and don't be afraid to speak your mind, even when it's unpopular. Because that, my friends, is the true spirit of hip-hop. And that's the spirit we're keeping alive right here. Peace out.